staying in the United States, I have long thought, and I know that many of you have also, that the best president that we never had in the United States was then Senator Ron Paul. And maybe a close second, his son, Senator Rand Paul. So when it became possible for me to interview Daniel McAdams, the executive director of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace, how could I possibly refuse? And you will be glad that I didn't. Daniel, welcome to the mother of all talk shows. And a big salute from us to both Ron and Rand Paul, please. Now, I know it's the Institute for Peace, so peace isn't going so well at the moment, Daniel. Where is World War III going to start? In the Persian Gulf, in the Levant, in the Ukraine, in the South China Sea, or all of them?
Well, in some ways, as Lenin said, the worse the better. You know, I mean, the worse they take us, the closer they take us to war, the more people are waking up. The problem is, can enough people wake up before the war actually starts? As to when the next war may break out, I'm not a betting man. If I were, I'd probably go with the Middle East. We saw today or yesterday, in fact, Amos Hochstein, who is Biden's representative to the Middle East, he said to Hezbollah, look, if Israel starts attacking Lebanon and you retaliate, we're going to help Israel. And by the way, there's nothing we can do to stop Israel from attacking you. So you guys are on your own. So that really was a green light to Israel, which had made a decision already, apparently, to start attacking Hezbollah in full force.
Well, if that were to happen, of course, Hezbollah would fight back with full force. Despite what Piers Morgan thinks, in 2006, Hezbollah gave Israel a bloody good hiding. And Israel is weaker now, and Hezbollah is exponentially stronger. So there's only one way that escalates, and that is Israel's allies have to join in with the war. And if that happens, Hezbollah's allies will have to join in. And hey presto, before you know it, you've got the superpowers at war. Talk about sleepwalking to disaster.
And the first, of course, the first target will be the thousands of American troops that are in Iraq still, and they're in Syria still. They're sitting ducks. They're meant to be sitting ducks, but they'll be the first ones to go. As you know better than anyone, George, when Iran did get involved, when it retaliated for the Israeli attack on a diplomatic facility, Iranian diplomatic facility in Syria, it wasn't well reported in the media. But as you know, what happened is that Iran sent a bunch of drones over to overwhelm the Iron Dome system. And when that was overwhelmed and non-functional, they sent some ballistic missiles in that hit their targets. The only reason the damage wasn't greater was because the United States had a warship off the coast that intercepted 80% of the incoming. So if I were an average Israeli right now, I would be pretty annoyed at the possibility of Iran getting involved and literally decimating the country.
I think if you were the average Israeli right now, you'd be headed for the airport, and hundreds of thousands of them have done so. They have done so, making use of the dual passports that a very large number of them have. But those that are forced to remain there won't be remaining in the north. They won't be in the Galilee because Hezbollah will invade the Galilee and liberate it. And of course, we know, though we're not supposed to talk about it, Israel has the ultimate Masada weapon. It has hundreds of nuclear bombs and might use them.
Certainly against Hezbollah's facilities in southern Lebanon, which, as you point out, George, they're a lot more sophisticated than they were in 2006, and they did give them a right bloody nose back in 2006. So if that were to be the case, you know, the thing that astonishes me, looking at it from the American perspective, the American political perspective, I wonder what is in it for the United States? What is in it for Joe Biden? Joe Biden has literally put his entire presidential campaign on a cross to be crucified at the feet of Benjamin Netanyahu. His entire constituency has turned against him. The numbers are completely against him. Yet he says, well, there's nothing we can do to stop this. Well, yeah, there is. Simply say no more money and no more weapons. We're not going to let this escalate because I'm not going to get reelected if it does. But they seem incapable of saying that. And I don't know, some people might say that's the power of the Israeli lobby. That's the power of the donor class, which really does rule American politics, not the voter. That's the real threat to our democracy in the U.S. But the question is, why would he do this? Why would he sacrifice everything for an absolute disastrous war on the horizon?
You could also say that about RFK, and I'm going to turn to him in a minute. But on the subject of the Israel lobby, which is, of course, not Jewish. It is overwhelmingly not Jewish. You don't have to be Jewish or even like Jews to be in the Israel lobby. In fact, many of the evangelical fanatics in the Israel lobby definitely don't like Jews. If you've ever been to their golf clubs, you'll know that. The race last night in New York State, where a pretty zany Democratic squad member, Jamal Bowman, for having the temerity to call for a ceasefire early in the war, was targeted by AIPAC, and it became the most expensive primary in American political history. $16 million was spent in a small district to bring about the defeat of Jamal Bowman. What price democracy, Daniel?
You're right. An otherwise unremarkable character Bowman has been. He hasn't distinguished himself, but he made the one big mistake, which is to step on that third rail, and he's been punished for it. Millions and millions of dollars have passed. But, you know, we're starting to see some light being shed on it. You know, Representative Thomas Massie, who thankfully sits on our board, he was on Tucker Carlson's show a couple of weeks ago where he talked about how you have your own babysitter from AIPAC, and he tells you how to vote and he tells you what to do. You know, I spent 12 years on Capitol Hill as an aide to Dr. Paul, and I know the power of the of the lobby, and I know that it's gotten probably stronger at the time. But Thomas Massie, despite $500,000 being put against him in his constituency, he beat with a 75%, I think, yes vote in his district in a primary. So they can be beat. But the thing about Thomas Massie is he says, look, I don't hate Israel. I vote against all foreign aid. I have principles that I act on. I don't want us to be the policemen of the world. We're pretty bad at it, and a lot of people die when we do it. So it makes it fairly simple when you have kind of an operating philosophy.
Yes, turning to that, Donald Trump is probably the less dangerous option in the presidential campaign. I say probably because you could adduce arguments about his attitude to China, his attitude to Iran, but on the principle that even a stopped clock is right twice a day, you could at least pray that twice a day Donald Trump would be right. But if we continue with whoever it is that's running the White House now, if they, by some hook or crook, were to get another 4-year term, I'm not sure the world will still be here by the end of it.
There's a slim chance that Donald Trump does the right thing. There's a zero chance that Joe Biden does the right thing, and when he does, it's for his own self. And you talked about Assange earlier. That was a very smart move, but to his political benefit. You know, I mean, the reason to like Donald Trump is that he's hated by all the right people, and that's kind of about it. And I think the only thing that protects us from doing something stupid in China or elsewhere is that he's afraid that it will damage his reputation. You remember back when he was president the first time, and all the lies, the pack of lies came out about the chemical attack in Syria. Now, he could have gone all in and really showed them, you know, what for. But he wanted to protect his reputation, so he basically said, okay, guys, give me a target that's not going to kill anyone. I'll blow up a building or two, no big deal, and I can claim victory. So it's kind of his own sense of, you know, his self-esteem, his sense of arrogance that ironically prevents him from doing something extremely stupid.
Yeah, I see it that way too. I'll not be happy if Donald Trump is the next president of the United States, but I'll be very happy that Joe Biden isn't. And that's just about the size of it. But I wanted to, as you are from the libertarian school of thought, both Senators Paul, Rand, and Ron, would loosely be called, at least over here, would be called libertarian people. RFK was supposed to be the libertarian option here. Down with foreign wars, down with corporate malfeasance and corruption, hostile to big pharma, hostile to the military-industrial complex, hostile to the three-letter agencies that murdered his uncle and his father. But he went completely berserk on the issue of Israel-Palestine. Have you any insight into that?
Well, the thing, pardon me, the thing about RFK's candidacy is not that it was necessarily an appeal to libertarians. He was a threat to the uniparty, to the duopoly in the U.S., because he had a broad appeal, because a lot of progressives were interested in him. A lot of people like my friend Glenn Greenwald, people like that, were interested in a candidate who could appeal to progressives and libertarians on important issues while stepping aside on issues that we don't necessarily share. He was a perfect candidate for that. Until something strange happened, if you remember. He had made a couple of comments about COVID, and he praised one of your great bass players from Pink Floyd, who has been a great champion of the Palestinian people. And all of a sudden, there was a backlash, and what we thought was going to be a pro-peace RFK turned into a pro-peace but RFK. And not only did he do, like, for example, I worked with Dr. Paul on the Hill as his foreign affairs advisor. Dr. Paul was always, of course I'm pro-Israel. I don't want to arm them. I don't want to fund them, but I don't want to harm them. So the best thing we can do is leave them alone. He could have done something like that, but instead he overcompensated so much, and he continues to do so to this day, so much that he frittered away what possibility he had to possibly even become elected president. He was putting forth something brand new that was interesting, that was a kind of a melding. So I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he got some kind of phone call. People speculate about blackmail. I don't know if it's as simple as that. But we do know that the CIA has deep roots in American politics, and RFK himself blames the CIA for killing his dad and uncle. So who knows what kind of a call he got, or what was presented to him.
Who knows? I hope we one day do. Finally, and I'm grateful for your time, Daniel, we've asked the question, who will win Thursday's Biden-Trump debate? Can you bear to watch it? And if you do, who do you think is going to win it?
Well, George, there's a fine line between tragedy and comedy. So the way that I've survived these 3 years of the Biden administration is that in the tragedy of Joe Biden, I found an enormous amount of comedy, and I find myself replaying his clips because it does remind you. But I would say Donald Trump is right. Let's take a drug test, because they're probably filling him full of happy juice. I will say one thing, though, whoever it was, and it certainly was not Joe Biden, whoever it was who called up the Justice Department and said, we got to get Assange out, it was a brilliant move. Because it's going to give Joe Biden one good thing. He's not going to talk about the economy. He's not going to talk about foreign policy. He has one very good thing to say on that stage, which is that, Donald Trump, you're the man responsible for all the charges. You could have got all the charges dropped against Assange. You're responsible for what happened. I've been working on a deal for a long time, and I got him freed. And that is a pretty big thing right now. So that's pretty much the only thing he has to pull out of his back pocket. But Trump's a great talker. Joe's not. It'll be interesting. I'll watch it. Yeah, I might have a bottle of whiskey with me, but I'll watch it.
I wonder if the referee will stop the fight because the president's taking too much punishment. He will, of course, have something in his ear, and as you say, something that he's taken between his lips. He'll be pumped up with whatever happy juice is necessary. But that doesn't mean his trousers might not fall down. If that happens, it will be the television event of the century. Daniel McAdams, a real pleasure to talk to you. Please give our regards to Dr. Paul and to Senator Paul. Daniel McAdams, Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace. Thank you for joining us.